Perspective. Joining me right now, Tennessee Congressman, Republican, good friend of mine, great firebrand, friend of the posse, Tim Burchett, my main man from Rocky Top. Tim, you have been privy to some of the discussions that Democrats have been having about the reaction of their voters and the grassroots. And, what are you able to share with the posse about the state of play in the presidential contest?
Well, it's a good thing that I don't drink because I get to hear, I can retain things when people maybe are. But I was with actually one Democrat, and then another one walked up who was one of the early defectors of this, and he's from a very liberal area. And he said something to me about, he said, I remember, when you were in the doghouse with your party, when y'all dumped the speaker, you and Matt Gaetz and the other of us did. And he said, and I said, yeah. And I said, well, this too will pass. And then I see him the next day, and somebody says, how are the calls in your district? And he said 5-1 in favor of dumping Biden. 5. And this is in a very liberal district, and this is their grassroots. So I think you really, and you nailed it on those folks wanting to be president. But the interesting thing is, none of them are jumping out right now because I think they'd have to say they embrace these crazy policies that have wrecked this country.
Well, in AOC's case, she wrote a few of them, so I think she wouldn't have any problem embracing, the disruption of our energy marketplace, the disruption of our monetary system, the inflation, the debt. She actually doesn't think we've gone into enough debt on a lot of those fronts. Tim, you and I have talked about the weaponization of this government a lot, and it was frustrating to me to see the Republicans moving spending bills that didn't seem to have sufficiently deep cuts and sufficiently appropriate restrictions on what we see the Bureau of Prisons doing or the Department of Justice doing. You and I did not vote for the legislative branch funding bill that came to the floor. It increased spending even above Nancy Pelosi levels. What can you tell the posse? I asked the same question of Andy Biggs about how hard it is to manifest any spending cut on anything in the United States Congress.
Well, it's ridiculous that we run as Republicans. I think we ought to look at what happened in Europe. They've kicked out all the conservatives over there, and the reason they kicked them out, they didn't respect their border. They didn't put in economic policies that they said to. It's what I've said all along. I was in little Marshall County last night, way over in Middle Tennessee, and man, they love you, and they love the posse, and they love Steve Bannon. But they talked about that type of thing. They talked about, why can't you all cut some of this spending? And I said, basically, it's the same thing. These Republicans, and I want to blame our own party, Matt. I know that's probably not the cool thing to do, but our own party, we come home and we preach all this red meat and how we're going to get even with Nancy Pelosi and all this stuff. And then what the hell do they do when they get back to D.C.? They vote us down the river every dadgum time in these spending bills. There was a simple amendment yesterday on the floor that Representative Jackson, he was a doctor. He was Trump's doctor, actually, in the White House. And it just said we're gonna keep spending levels in our medical offices that we have control over to the 2020 level. And the bill didn't pass. And, it's because we've got these little fiefdoms and we've got these chairmen who pay to play. They raise enough money. They are in the lobbyist pocket, K Street, and they sell us down the river every dadgum time. We've got to start holding these people accountable. And I hope when Donald Trump is back in that we do some house cleaning.
Yeah, there was one of them we held accountable, and I don't think he's walking the streets of Bakersfield anymore. But with Trump back, we hope that courage is contagious. We've got the big Republican National Convention coming up this week. Tim, you're widely respected in the Congress as somebody who understands every man. The regular Joe, the lunch bucket guy out in this country. What do you think is the most important message for Republicans to crystallize in this critically important coming week?
I think we better crystallize the fact that we've got to secure our dadgum border, Matt. I think people are irate with the crime, the rape, the things that are going on, out and everywhere I go. And also, honestly, I hear a lot about Steve Bannon, and why are we not standing up for him? Why isn't our leadership? I know that's not a convention issue. That's more of a congressional issue. But I knock on doors, and I'm at everything out here in my counties and all over the state, actually. And but the border situation to me is probably the most infuriating when they see jobs being taken, they see crime happening, and they know it's our National Chamber of Commerce. And again, our own party, we're in the majority. Dadgummit, we ought to be sticking it to them, and they really aren't seeing that. And when Trump gets back in, I thought he made a good job in the debate. Nothing's really been said about it. They all just say, "Well, Trump lied." Well, they don't say how he lied. He told the truth. He said under his leadership of what happened, Americans are $600 more out of pocket every month just for groceries. And working people, they don't live in the Beltway. They're not making 6 or 7 figures like a lot of these cats are in D.C. The working people are really sucking wind right now. And then they want to say that we got more.
Nope, you're right.
Jobs
Well, hey, I got to cut you off there, Tim. We got to put those working people at the center of the convention. I think the border is the critical issue we have to address. It's going to bring people to the Republican side, and we have to have a fighting force. We know the posse's a fighting force. Trump is banned.